Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Shine Wealthy, our summit for wellness entrepreneurs and thought leaders who want to create six-figure businesses in a way that feels easy and joyful and authentic. And I am here with one of my good friends and soul sisters, Nicole Kramer. Hi, Nicole. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with you about creating invitations. And I want you to kind of share with people a little bit about the certification that you, as a facilitator, of exactly what to say, because I get asked these questions all the time with coaches or practitioners that are so unsure about, what do I say? How do I create an invitation? How do I even invite somebody to work with me or invite somebody into my program? So thank you for helping us with this piece.
Of course. I love it. Thank you for having me here and allowing me to share what I know to help people out with that.
Cool. So tell us about the certification that you've been through. You are a certified exactly what to say coach, facilitator,
Guide. Yes.
guide.
I like to say guide. That's the official. And the reason I say that is because I like to guide people through how to use their words to have more impact and influence in their conversations. And the reason I like guide is because sometimes I don't know initially what their critical conversations are, what the majority of their objections are. And so I work with them and we work together to guide through how to handle different pieces of conversations and how to always know exactly what to say.
This is amazing. So good.
Yeah.
So I know
Well,
that
I know you have the book and for people who don't know what the book is, it's the work that I do is around a book called Exactly What to Say. It's a bestseller and it's got what I call magic phrases. And it's really like taking these magic phrases. It's not like a game of pairs where it's like, hey, if somebody says this, you always say this. It's more putting these magic phrases together in different arrangements so that you know how to get the outcome that you're looking for in a conversation. Because the reason these words are magic is they speak directly to the person's subconscious brain. What it allows you to do is when you're speaking directly to somebody's subconscious, it allows you to help them make a decision faster because the subconscious brain doesn't overthink. So when we have these magic words that speak directly to that person, that part of a person's brain, they don't get stuck in maybe land as often. They're able to make a decision, just like your subconscious brain does for you all day, every day, right? Like you're breathing right now and you're not telling your lungs to breathe. Your heart's beating and it beat all last night while you were asleep and you didn't tell it to. You don't have to think about those things. You've probably driven somewhere familiar before. And when you got there, you were like, oh crap, I don't even remember driving here. Well, it was programmed in your brain and your subconscious just got you there. So your subconscious brain is making decisions for you all day long. When we, whether it's in a sales conversation or any conversation in our life, really know how to communicate better and speak to that part of a person's brain, we're able to affect the outcomes that we want and help people make a decision in a more efficient way.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I haven't read all of the book yet, but now I'm going to have to like dive back into it and read more about
It's really powerful.
Phrases are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's four, you were telling me earlier about there being 4 points to the conversation. Is that?
Yes. There's 4 cornerstones for conversational excellence. And I like to really make sure people are very clear on the thing that I already said, which is the fact that these talk to the subconscious brain. And then the 4 cornerstones for what makes your conversations excellent. Because if we just give you the phrases, it would be the equivalent of me giving you a formula. And if you don't know how to use it, you might not plug the numbers in the right way. Right? Just having the formula doesn't necessarily guarantee results. We want to understand the why. So there's 4 things to remember. First of all, most importantly, the worst time to think about what you're going to say is the moment you're going to say it. That's the first of the 4 cornerstones. What that means is, where are your critical conversations that are happening on repeat? Where are those ones that after you get out, you're like, God, I should have known better. Like I could have been prepared for this. What are those critical conversations that maybe it's with sales conversations, maybe it's conversations with your team, maybe it's conversations with your partner, right? Like not just in the business world. Also, what are the common objections that you hear? Again, the worst time to think about what you're going to say is the moment you're going to say it. You don't want to wait until the objection comes up.
Right.
Think about it. You know, more than likely what people are going to say. I can't afford it. I don't have the time. I need to talk to my partner. There's some very common objections. When we think ahead of how to handle those, then you're more prepared in the moment, right? Yeah. So the other way to look at it is each morning, what are the critical conversations I'm going to have today? And how can I be a little bit more prepared? For example, last week I had a collaboration call with somebody and I knew there was going to be an opportunity for us to exchange how we could support each other.
Mhm.
So I thought ahead, what are some areas that I would like to say I could use support? Maybe it was an event that I was having that I would like for her to share. Maybe it's, hey, would you rate and review my podcast and take a listen, right? What can I do to prepare for that call so that I know how to handle those parts of the conversations? So it's really in so many areas of our lives, we want to be prepared to what am I going to encounter and how can I think about that ahead of time? So that's the first cornerstone. The second, it's one of my favorites. It's lead with curiosity in all of your conversations. And I think so often, especially in the coaching world, we know how to help people and we're very quick to jump into the conversation with advice. And when we can stay curious instead of being so certain, what we do is we show the other person that we care. And you want to show them that you care because more than anything in life, what people want is they want to feel cared about.
Yeah.
And to be honest, before they're going to step into any kind of coaching container with you, they do want to have that feeling that you care about them, that you're taking the time to get to know them. And so often with an objection, we hear it and we don't stay curious around it to really uncover what's the objection all about,
Yeah.
right? Like if somebody says that's too expensive and you just buy that at that, and you don't take the time to really get curious and get into the layers of what that might mean, then you maybe don't really understand what that objection was all about. And here's the other thing. They might not understand it either. And talking through it with you helps them to have an awareness that you want them to have.
And
right?
then to make the decision, right? More of an important decision instead of just saying, oh, I just can't afford it.
Right. And you and I've talked about this so many times. There's a difference between selling and buying. If you're selling somebody something, you're making it about you. I'm going to sell you something because I want you to buy it. But when you're staying in the conversation and staying curious to help them make a buying decision, it feels a lot different. And that's really what we want, right? We're professional mind maker uppers. We're not somebody.
I love that.
Right? Like that's what you're really helping somebody do. I'm here to help you make up your mind. What's best for you? And I want the best outcome for both. I'm not pulling you across the line if you're not a hell yes. And I want us to decide that together. And maybe that's not the case right now. Maybe you're not a hell yes right now. And staying curious allows us to really get there. And the other thing that curiosity does is it allows us to do what the third cornerstone says, which is build empathy. People do things for their reasons, not yours.
Yeah.
It's important for us to uncover what are their reasons for being in this conversation with me? What are their reasons for wanting to make these changes? What are their reasons that would make them want to stay where they are? Sometimes that's just as valuable. Well, what would make it worthwhile for you to stay where you're at based on everything you've shared with me that you really want to work on, these things that you really want to change and improve? It also sounds like you might be okay with staying where you are. Like, I want to understand. I want to stay curious. And sometimes you're like, well, I don't want to stay where I am, but they need to hear themselves say that. So 2 and 3 are really about, hey, how can I stay curious, really get to know this person? There's always layers. There's always a need behind the need. How can I uncover that? And then build empathy. And I like to say, everybody listens to the same radio station. It's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And that's what you want to uncover with building empathy is, why do they want to be in this conversation? Why might they want to step into this container with me? And empathy, there's a definition that I really like, and I can't remember who said it. I'm going to have to think about this, but the definition is empathy is caring about what those you care about care about.
Wow.
Empathy is caring about what those you care about care about. And I think it's really important to know in that conversation, it's not about you just trying to make a sale. Let's really get to know the person and understand what's important to them and what would make them want to make that decision, because that's why they're going to make it. And then the fourth cornerstone is the person in control of the conversation is the person asking the questions. So this goes back to cornerstone 1. How can you be prepared and know what types of things might come up in the conversation? What are the common objections I'm going to hear? How can I decide ahead of time? What are some questions I might want to ask and get curious about? And you are in control of the conversation when you're asking the questions. The other thing with that is you have to have the courage to ask. That's a big part of cornerstone number 4. You've got to be willing to ask some of the tough questions.
Wow.
Was that thunder?
That was thunder in my background. I'm sorry.
Thunderstorms. It's okay. It's kind of
turn that down.
I wish it was happening right here. But ultimately, and I forget where I was, but hold on, let me think. I got all excited about the thunder.
I know. Number 4. With
number 4,
the invitation, you have to ask.
You have to ask. And if you stay curious, it will allow you to ask really good questions. And one of the things I like to always remind my clients and remind myself when I'm in a conversation and I'm sitting there going, oh, what do I say next? What do I say next? Oh my God, I've got to think about the right thing. That's coming from fear.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
When I'm in a conversation and I'm coming from curiosity and I'm actually listening and I'm challenging myself to stay curious, that's coming from love. That's coming from, I care about you. That's coming from, because if somebody says something like, well, that's too expensive. In that moment, I'm a little confused. Then why are we in this conversation?
Yeah.
And instead of saying like, it's not too expensive, you can afford it. Well, who does that help? Right. Nobody wants to be told what to do. It creates friction.
Yeah.
So if we can stay curious, and if you think ahead, based on an interaction that you've had with that person, what might be some objections that are going to come up? And how can I stay curious to ask around those? Because sometimes if somebody says it's too expensive, that might not actually be the case.
Yeah. So what are some examples of some questions that you would ask when someone says it's too expensive?
I might ask, what is your experience in working with a coach? Because so often when somebody says it's too expensive, and again, remember, this is about staying curious. It's also, this is a really important point, it's about slowing it down to speed it up. Because if I meet that it's too expensive with, no, it's not, this is really worth it. And if I try to just prove the value,
right,
then it's, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
But I'm curious in that moment. Because if somebody says something's too expensive, they've got a measuring stick that they're using to make that claim. What are they comparing it to? Well, let's say, for example, like we're all in the health and wellness world. Let's say that they're comparing it to their gym membership. Apples to oranges. Not a fair comparison, right? So in that moment, I want to stay curious. And I might ask something like, well, what is your experience in working with a certified health coach? And if they say, well, I don't have any experience with this. Well, would it help if I shared some of the ways I've helped my clients achieve the results that they're looking for? Right? Or if they say it's too expensive, if that's literally what they say, it's too expensive, I might say, what is your experience with investing in yourself? And with that one, who knows, maybe I'll uncover that there's some shame that they made an investment that they weren't happy with or that they didn't like. And now there's some fear. And it's not that it's actually too expensive. It's the fear that's standing in the way. They really want this, but they know they're blaming themselves or there's some fear from a past investment. Well, let's uncover that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'll be honest, my very first coach 4 years ago, I said that's too expensive and it was not the truth. It wasn't the truth. And I ended up finding a way to make it happen.
Yep. Same. I'm all in on that. And I invested 10 grand and at the time that was more than I had. It wasn't like I had a bank account, savings account. I was 20 grand in debt and I had no room on my credit cards. So I could have absolutely said, oh, no, can't do it. Too expensive.
Yeah.
And yet when we value something, we can actually come up with a way.
Totally. Well, the example that I like to use a lot, because you and I are the same, like I said, it's too expensive and I figured out a way. I found a way, right? Because that wasn't actually my truth. There was some fear there. Am I going to really be able to do this? Am I going to really be able to create the results? Can I, and I think that's the other big, not to go off on too much of a tangent with this, but I think that's the other thing is like, is it really too expensive or is that our fear? And also, what are we afraid of that we're not going to do? And if we've said it before, our clients are going to, or our potential clients are going to say it to us as well. And I really think that staying curious in that moment and understanding where that's coming from is really, really important because very often it's just a very easy excuse to buy into when somebody says it's too expensive. And the example that I like to use is if I said right now, is $10,000 a lot of money?
For what?
Say yes. So exactly. For what? For what? $10,000 is neutral. It's just $10,000. If I say it's $10,000 for this pair of glasses, I probably agree. That's a lot of money. If I say it's $10,000 for this beautiful house on the beach that's valued at $2 million, and I'm willing to sell it to you for 10,000, all of a sudden the 10,000 doesn't seem like very much.
Yeah.
So there's always a measuring stick there, right?
Yeah.
When somebody has that idea in their mind, and we want to stay curious long enough to understand what's the measuring stick they're using, because it might not be a fair comparison to what we're doing. And so some of those phrases like, what is your experience with? That's a great set of magic words, because what you're not doing in that moment is meeting them and saying, oh, you're saying, well, what's your experience with this? And maybe they'll say, I've never invested in myself before. Oh, I've been there. I remember what it was like to invest in my first coaching opportunity. And it was really scary, you know? And I think the other thing is with it's too expensive. And I think you and I agree on this because we've talked about it many times. I didn't just have the money sitting around. And I think so often people are like, because I don't have that amount of money in my bank account that I can see the numbers on, I can't afford it.
Right.
I didn't.
Yep.
Right. And so this idea that a lot of people are like, well, she did it because she had the money. I don't think that that's really the case. And I think a lot of people believe that because I don't have the money. You really want it, you'll find a way. So some of those phrases are really great because they just open up the conversation. Tell me, what is your experience with investing in yourself?
I love that question. I love that question. So that then they can be like, oh, well, I just invested, or I just finished a program and it didn't work out, or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, so it's not really about the money at all. It's about the fear that you're not going to get a return on your investment, or you're not going to trust yourself to follow through, to take the action, to actually create what it is that you want.
Right. What is this really about? And to me, it's more empowering to listen. At the end of the conversation, if you still decide that this isn't where you want to invest your money, fair enough, but let's make it from an empowered place. That's why I want to have that conversation. If you're saying it's too expensive, well, don't let money be the reason that you don't do something that you really want to do. Let's get to the place of making an empowered choice. You know, another thing I like to say, if somebody says that's too expensive, or I can't afford that. What makes you say that? Because it's not about rushing to the finish line. It's not about me in that moment going, how can I get them to become my client? I want to slow it down to speed it up. And I'm not going to really address if you say, I don't know if I can afford that. I'm curious. What makes you say that? Because we might actually find out through conversation, you can't afford not to. And I want you to come to that realization.
I love this because this is also about partnering with somebody. It's not about overcoming a specific objection. It's about how can I help somebody also be heard and be seen, and partner with them to make that decision, and to actually see, you know, maybe they just have a limiting belief about what's possible for them. And so it's coming from a completely different place, which is just an old program that they keep playing, that they don't allow themselves to, you know, invest, or, you know, they're afraid of something. And so when you get to ask questions like that and be curious, then you're actually partnering with them instead of trying to overpower somebody. I love that so much.
Exactly. Because that's really what it's about, right? And the other thing is, once they get inside your coaching container, you're going to have to ask them some challenging questions then as well. And the selling never stops. You want to work with people who are a hell yes, for sure. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to have their objections throughout your time together, because especially as a health and wellness coach, what are you doing? You're helping them change and shift their habits. You're helping them create a new lifestyle. And these things are programmed in them for a very long time. And they're going to have some things that you're going to have to ask some tough questions and help guide them through. No different than that initial conversation about the investment.
So good. Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
good. Wow.
So I know that you wanted to talk about how to start some conversations, how to maybe invite somebody into a conversation to working with you. One of my favorite ways to open up a conversation in a rejection-free way is to use this phrase. I'm not sure if it's for you, but. Now, obviously you're not going to stop right there. You're going to say whatever it is that you're about to introduce to them. But for example, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I've got this masterclass coming up on how to lose weight and really set yourself up for success for the summertime. Who do you know that could benefit from that? Now, what you've said is, I'm not sure if it's for you. That's the caveat, right? Like, I'm saying it might not be for you. So if it's not, that's totally cool. And then you're putting a but after the sentence because you're saying, but I'm still going to tell you. Not sure if it's for you, but I'm still going to tell you about it. Now, this is why it talks to the subconscious brain. What the person who's hearing you say that is thinking is, well, let me decide.
I'm not
I'll
sure.
decide if it's for me or not, right? There's a little bit of FOMO there. Your subconscious brain is like, I'll tell you if it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've gotten them now focused on is what's going to come after the but. Now they want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what it is. I'll tell you if it's for me or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you actually have them focused on the very place you want them focused on, which is the thing you wanted to introduce, which is great. And if it's not for them, they might say, yeah, that doesn't sound like something I'm looking for. Cool.
Yep.
And then you could follow up with another set of magic words. No problem. Who do you know
Mm-hmm.
that it could benefit? Right? Maybe it's not for them. Cool. Who do you know that could benefit? And maybe they'll give you a name. Maybe that's one more breadcrumb on the way to you inviting somebody new into your world. And it just happened to be through that person. And when you know these types of phrases and these types of things to use, it makes it really simple and really easy to make the ask. No problem. Who do you know? So that's one of my favorite ways to introduce pretty much anything to anybody at any time, right? Whether it's a new masterclass, whether it's, hey, I've got this Facebook Live that I do once a week in my group. I want to invite a bunch of people to it. Cool. Not sure if it's for you, but here's what I do. Another great way to invite somebody into a conversation is using the phrase open-minded. And here's why this one works. Again, we're talking to the subconscious brain, right? Well, if I were to ask everybody who's watching this right now, if they consider themselves to be open-minded, I don't think that many people would not raise their hands and say, yeah, most people consider themselves to be open-minded. Why? What's the alternative? Closed-minded. And nobody thinks of themselves in that way. So we all identify as open-minded. So when you ask a question like, hey, how open-minded would you be to jumping on a call and talking about some of these things you shared with me? Because what you're not asking is, are you willing to get on a call with me? The question that you're actually asking is, how open-minded are you to getting on the call with me? Very different ask, very slight, but very different. And because everybody wants to identify with being open-minded, you've got their attention when you say, how open-minded are you? Here's the other thing. And I know you and I teach very similar things about nurturing and building relationships with people. Well, at that point, you're probably not for the very first time talking to them saying, hey, how open-minded are you? There's probably some context that you've gained where they've shared a little bit about their struggles, and that's why they're in your world. If they've shared some of their struggles, how open-minded are you about doing something about these is really what you're saying. How much longer do you want to talk about these things? I have a way to help. So how open-minded are you about getting on a short call to talk about some of these? I could make some suggestions that might help you. And if you're interested in some of my programs, we could certainly talk about that as well.
Fantastic.
Simple.
So easy.
It is, right?
Easy. Yes.
And that's how it should be. The most important stuff that we do in business should be the simple, fundamental stuff. And really your language, improving the way you have conversations will absolutely explode your world in a really good way, because not only in sales conversations will you create opportunities, but you'll be creating opportunities in so many places in your business. And actually, I ran a workshop on this stuff recently. And one of the women who was in the workshop at the end, she goes, I want you to know these phrases saved my marriage.
Wow.
She said, it didn't just help me in my business, it saved my marriage, because what she was learning is how to communicate better everywhere, how to show compassion and care about somebody in every area of her life, right? How to have that empathy towards people. And so she communicated very differently with her husband based on these phrases. So they work everywhere.
These are such great phrases. Oh my gosh, Nicole, this is amazing. I love this. And this works for everybody.
It does.
Yes. I love also that you said this isn't just about pairs. Like you have to memorize some set of, if they say this, then say this. If they say this, then say this, which no, because then it takes it out of just being a natural, organic conversation.
Yep. It takes it out of being a human. They are a human, and there's not, and listen, Chris, if I had the one thing that you always say to somebody, whenever somebody says it's too expensive, if I knew the one thing that immediately made them go, oh, you're right, it's not too expensive. Here you go. Here's all my money. I'm going to sell that for $1 bajillion and call it a day.
That's
But
right.
that's not reality. This is about relationships and human beings.
Yes.
And we've got to take the time to really get to know them. It's not about when they say it's too expensive, you always say this and it works. So yeah, it's not a game of pairs. It's more like, let's take these phrases, there's 32 in total, and put them together in different combinations to create the outcomes that we want more often. So, you know, I teach people how to ask for referrals. It's really simple, but we put a couple of word tracks together. You practice it just like you're an actor reading a script, what actors do? They start by reading a script. They practice with the script, and then they start to go off script, and then they're a little fumbly with it. And then they get to a point where by the time they're actually delivering those lines on stage or on camera, it's become theirs.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want to do with these word tracks, is get practice with them so that they're becoming, so just like if you're learning choreography in a dance, you eventually make it your own and you put your own flair into it, right? The actor that's delivering those lines on stage, you're crying as that actor's delivering those lines. Well, the actor learned those lines from a script.
Yeah.
We can do the same thing. And if we're willing to really dive into what the fundamentals are and practice them, you'll be amazed at how much your world opens up just by learning how to communicate better and speak to that part of the person's brain that helps them make decisions.
Oh my gosh, Nicole, this is gold. This is golden. I wish I had this when I first started my business. Holy cow, it would make conversations so much easier.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now you've got something special. What is it that we get to share with everybody here today?
I have my 6-figure toolkit that we are going to be sending to everybody. Yeah, it is an amazing opportunity to see what I think is really important is to be able to see behind the scenes, right? It's like you and I've talked about the 4-minute mile. And when we see that somebody else has done something, it just makes it so much more believable that we can do it too. And so what I did is I just put together, here's my toolkit. Here's what it looked like on my path to 6 figures. And I put it together in a booklet for everybody to check out and see what they can take and make their own on their way to 6 figures.
And it's so good. I've seen it. It's amazing. I have it. It's on my desktop. Definitely grab it.
Thank you. Yeah, super helpful.
So good, Nicole. So how can they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about learning exactly what to say and how to communicate better and to just have more authentic, real conversations?
Yeah. So I do run these workshops every so often. I don't have my next one planned yet, but definitely, get into my world. I am on Facebook. Nicole's Sales Superstars is my Facebook group where I do free trainings every week. And I'm also on regular Facebook, Nicole Kramer. And then on Instagram, I'm the Nicole Kramer. So connect with me on any of those. Definitely, I'd love to welcome you into my Facebook group if you're looking for some sales support. If you are a woman who is in the health and wellness world, it's a great community of other women who are doing similar things in the world. So,
oh, totally. Love your Facebook group. It's so much fun. So much fun.
Love yours too.
Thank you. And your trainings are so incredibly valuable.
Thank you.
They are really designed to help health and wellness coaches create more sales in their business, because when you are working with more people, you are changing the world. And so, Nicole is a brilliant coach that is going to help guide you into how you can make more sales in your business in a way that feels more natural, more organic, and more like a conversation instead of trying to overpower somebody. It's so wonderful. I love it, Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you. I love you and the work that you do. I love that we're both so aligned in how we serve and how it really is making an impact on the health and wellness of the world, which I know is super important to both of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We get to, and everybody's who's here, who is a wellness coach or a holistic practitioner or a thought leader or a feminine wellness leader in some way, shape, or form. Like, it's on our heart to make a difference in the world. And these tools that we're teaching you in the summit are designed to give you these golden nuggets that you can start implementing in your business now. So I can't wait to hear all the women who are just going to be trying this. I don't know if this is a good fit for you, but I don't know. So that in itself, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And just everybody remember, slow it down to speed it up. Get curious. If somebody says something, don't try to overcome what they've said. Get curious and dive into it, and you can even say, I'm just curious, could you unpack that more for me? Again, the person here, I am still good. I'm like, let me give you some more phrases, but there's so much that I want to share where people get stuck in their conversations, where they hold themselves back from helping people. It's like, don't let that be the reason that you're not helping people. Like, I see you putting hurdles and things in the way. Like, it really is as powerful as learning how to communicate a little bit better. And it opens up so much for you. So get people talking, stay curious, and really show that you care, and you'll be amazed at what comes out of that.
So good. So good. Okay, my dear, everybody go to the hub. We've got the Summit Hub, and take a look at Nicole's picture. You will find her there. There's a button right there. You can download the 6-figure toolkit. And Nicole, thank you so much for being here. I adore you. And everybody, we will see you back here again tomorrow. So go make some invitations.
Go do it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.